you check the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
You got Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are in the midst of just a bunch of movies that need reviewing here on the channel, leading into the Halloween season. I don't know if we're going to get too many more between now and actually Halloween time, right? Is there very much in the back half of August or early half of September?
Not really, besides last Voyage of the Demeter, the Under over the Doll, which I know
We'll be
we're
covering next week, yeah.
yep, which we're all collectively stoked about. But yeah, everything else is like, smaller releases on Shudder and Screambox and stuff like that. So I think the theatrical window for scarific stuff is kind of closing down. So
yeah, I agree. So, guys, we are here today to discuss the brand newest, I would almost hesitate not to call it horror release, but the brand new kind of horror release, Meg 2: The Trench. And this is going to be an interesting one. Now, two things right up front. One, we do have a special unboxing that is at the end of this video. So stay tuned to the end of the review if you want to see a cool thing that the Meg people sent us. The box is right over there on the ground. It was a substantial box, but again, not paid promotion. We were not paid to cover this film. We are simply covering it as, news people, so to speak, reviewers. But yeah, so the other thing I want to mention is that just so you guys know where I'm at going into this review, in case you didn't see us cover the original Meg film from a couple of years back, I am coming from the point of view of someone that loves all the Meg books. I have the very first edition that was released way back in the 90s, the very first version of this book, and then I have the special edition. This one the book was altered when the first movie was being made, so that the book now follows the same chain of events that the movie did instead. So in this version of the book, the Meg rose and went to California and started eating people. In this version of the book, he rose and went to China and started eating people. Yep. So, yeah.
Based on the financiers of that first and this movie, too. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So we had a fun discussion about that. In case you haven't seen it, I'll try and remember to link to it at the end of this video.
Yeah, Alton's been on the show twice, right?
Yep. I've interviewed him twice on the show. That's the author of the book, obviously. But there's 6 books total, and this is the one that the movie was based on. And right up front, I will say, that there is a thing from this book in the movie. And it's not even the correct version of that thing. So this is not at all what you see on screen in any way, shape, or form. They changed so much that it's ridiculous to even call it The Trench, in relation to this book anyway. It's called The Trench because there's a healthy amount of stuff that's done in the trench, a lot more than I anticipated personally. But the last point I wanted to make is, if you're not aware, this series, if you like the movies, if you went and saw this movie and you enjoyed it for its hokiness, great, happy for you. If you're curious, Steve Alton also has a series called The Lock, where if you take a look at the artwork here, it is indeed that lock, and it is indeed a monster. So he has his own take on the Loch Ness Monster terrorizing Scotland. Again, I have the original release and the special edition release. But the Meg series does cross over with the Lock series. There's 2 Lock books. I think my mom still has my second book borrowed for reading. But if you guys are curious, the same author did a Loch Ness Monster book series as well, and they have crossed over. So it's fun for those of you that are big-time creature fans like me. But getting to the movie of it all, Fuego, what are your overall thoughts? Why don't you start us off?
Well, I didn't like the first movie, and I didn't think it could get too much tokier, goofier, derpier, worse. And I was especially excited with Ben Wheatley coming on board because I like his stuff. I believe he's a British director. Mostly art house stuff, though, like High Rise and Free Fire, In the Earth from like a year or two ago. So him doing this compared to Turtle Top, like the first one, it was kind of a head scratcher for me. But this movie is summed up very well in its stupidity with a line that is mentioned by a character earlier in the movie. That's the biggest Meg I've ever seen. And then Statham is like, it's the biggest anyone's ever seen. And I'm just like, logic out the window. This is going to be even stupider than the last one. And I've seen some reviewers embracing that. I just can't, man. This movie, it wasn't as bad as I was thinking it was going to be, but it was not the popcorn fun that I was really hoping for. And not enough shark action for me. There was a lot of human, like, just twirling your mustache, figuratively speaking, villainy going down. That didn't really work for me. The CG was... I saw it in 3D, and this is some of the worst 3D that I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't even... We'll get to that in the effects and the visuals and whatnot. So it looked bad, and it was really only in a few scenes, most notably that first trudge down the trench when they have to leave their wrecked pod or whatever. And so, yeah, man, a lot of the humor didn't work for me either. Although I thought the guy from Weeds, the black dude, he had a few chuckles from me. But yeah, aside from that, this didn't really do. I didn't think it could be a step down from the previous one. Within my estimation, a better director coming on board, but it just didn't. Bing Bing didn't come back. I would imagine she wanted more money or something. What happened with her character, you find out early on. So. Mm-hmm. I don't know, dude. The story was not very strong at all. It got goofier. Maybe that'll work for some, but not for me. I've only read the first book, though, so I don't really have a lot to base on as far as later in the series. And I loved that first book and the seriousness. And for this series to kind of go in the camp route to more like a Piranha kind of thing, I don't know. It's just not for me, at least. While I love those Piranha movies, so I don't know. It just doesn't work with this property. So.
That's actually not a terrible sort of comparison to me that you just brought up. This is kind of the Piranha Double D, 3 Double D to the Piranha 3D of Meg 1. Like, Meg 1 was campy, but it was still fun, and it was still taken relatively seriously. This one just throws all that shit out the window, and it's just ridiculousness after ridiculousness, like, and dumb. It's not even what I would call dumb fun. It's just dumb. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree, there wasn't nearly enough Meg action. You reminded me, the mustache twirling evil villain. That is... It wasn't the same character or the same version or at all, but there was sort of a mustache twirling villain in the Trench book. And there was an underwater lab in the book. Those are literally the two elements that were taken, and both done completely incorrectly.
So was there like the mining stuff of really precious? Nope. Okay, nope. So that was
not at all.
Because I didn't. We'll get into that in story. I thought that was at least kind of an interesting, understandable wrinkle. I mean, there were glimmers of this being an interesting movie, but they just didn't embrace it at all. So
no, and again, I'm gonna make sure that I'm very clear here. I am not judging this movie based on what it isn't. I'm not judging it based on the fact that it's not like the book at all. I'm judging it based on what they presented to me. Because I knew they weren't going to be able to do exactly the same thing from the book anyway. But yeah, so I'm going to judge it for what it is, and it is dumb and stupid and not that entertaining. It to me emphasizes how silly it is to make a giant shark movie PG-13, because it's it's toothless. You know what I mean? For being about a creature with lots of teeth, it's a toothless ass violent movie. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people being swallowed whole, which, yes, that would happen sometimes, but they would also be biting people in half pretty regularly. And that does kind of happen at times, but no one's severed. They just hang out of the mouth. And I'm like, no, that's not, no, his mouth is closed. That shit would be severed. You know what I mean? Like, so it didn't have any real redeeming qualities. Like, the first one was kind of stupid, but it was still fun, and it had some redeeming qualities. This one, to me, was just stupid, and it didn't really have many, if at all, any redeeming qualities, you know? So it was just a bummer. It was a waste of time. Thank God it was just a hair under 2 hours and not longer. But it could easily be chopped down to an hour and a half and probably be a bit leaner and meaner, so to speak.
Because it was almost 2 hours too.
Yeah, 156. Like, I checked during the movie because that's how engaged I was with it. I was like, and I'll say it was like an hour and 15 minutes into it when I checked, because that's about how long we get of trench action and not Megs at the surface action. And so I was like, what are we doing here? Why did we choose to focus on this? But yeah, so I guess that's some pretty extensive overall thoughts. Let's just.
Yeah, I saw your tweet when I finally got home late from work last night, and I saw your tweet, or X, or whatever the hell we're calling him now.
Oh God.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, we're in line about this one. And I knew it was just
so
going to be
pissed.
even worse for you, because since I don't have a lot of familiarity with the series, I'm going in essentially blind for a sequel. Whereas, for us to still have the same reaction, more or less, is. It's unfortunate, and I'm really curious how this is going to do at the box office, because the last one made a shit ton of money, which is why it warranted a sequel. But are people really going to care this time? Maybe the international markets will be more inclined to pump their dollars into it. But
I saw a 7:30 on a Thursday night, and the theater was like a third full. So I don't know what that says. But it was a big theater, so I don't know. In a smaller theater, it might have been full. But yeah, I'm interested to see as well. Because to me, the first one, like, it did very well considering the quality of the movie, in my opinion. So maybe that'll happen again with this one.
It
you know
did.
what I mean?
I want to say like over 500 million at the worldwide box office. So,
Well, it's definitely going to make probably more outside of the U.S. than inside the U.S. this time around, I would think. Because to me, it felt like this one, I think, if the first one was financed like 33% by China in order to have that much of the movie and story moved to China and bring in a Chinese lead, this one must have been 50 to 75% funded by China. Because this one was so much heavier into the Chinese aspect, and more characters, and all of the pop music was all Chinese versions of American songs, and I'm like, okay.
Last song in the end credits, it was like, that's not my name, but it was it was like a Chinese version.
That was all of them. All of them in the movie were that.
Yeah,
like, so,
I guess I wasn't paying much attention to the music.
No, it was at least 3 or 4 different pop songs that they did that with. So it was, and that's not to say that makes it a bad thing. It just it means that funding kind of pushed story in a certain way, and it just wasn't that interesting. And again, we had to have another Chinese lead, with Jason Statham in order to fulfill the whole funding thing. Because not done for story reasons.
I liked him though.
He was great in the movie, but he also, to me, I was telling this to some of the people I saw the movie with after the film last night. Like, to me, it felt like he was too good of an actor shoehorned into this movie.
True.
You know what I mean?
Like Keith Stanfield in the Haunted Mansion movie.
Exactly. Yeah. But all right, just real briefly into the story. Jason Statham and his crew have kind of reassembled, and now they take regular trips down to the Mariana Trench to map it, in these new submersibles, and they have specific, defenses on their subs in case they encounter Megs and stuff. They switch off their bright lights and turn on red lights, which, what a simple fix for the first movie to have not discovered, but nonetheless. And then, but what happens very conveniently, it turns out that there's a Meg in captivity. Like, I guess one of the Megs that swam out of the dying Meg in the last movie, right? Everyone assumed that would be Angel. Nope, not called Angel. It's called like Hayaki or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, it breaks out and swims down behind them as they go on an excursion that, the character from the first movie that's not in this movie's daughter is tagging along on, so there's added stakes, right? Yeah. And so they go down, and as soon as they go down this time, they encounter a bunch of Megs, and their Meg like joins up with them, and they also find this station, and then they get stuck down there and have to find a way back to the surface. That's the first like hour and 15 minutes of the movie. And then once they, whomever makes it back up to the surface, the Megs follow along with other creatures, and then the chaos of the third act begins. And that's basically the long and short of it without spoiling anything for you guys. So yeah, I just thought it was a disjointed story that focused on the wrong thing for way too long, and the movie suffered dramatically for it.
Yeah, the first 2/3 were very boring, man. Very slow going, and just the whole, I don't know, evil corporate greed sort of thing, and that whole angle, which we've seen countless times. And it's not like surprising in this particular case, especially with the mining of precious ores down there that they can use for all kinds of, astronomy related stuff, telescopes, whatever the hell it's going to be. But yeah, the third act was where I was like, okay, this is finally starting to ramp up and get interesting. I'm finally seeing people eaten by sharks, and it's always a pity when one of the cooler kills in the film is shown in the trailer, and they show the death of one character in the trailer.
A pretty critical character.
Exactly, yeah. And so I was like, oh, you guys really had to do that, because I was hopeful when I saw the scene coming. I was like, they're gonna deviate a little bit, right? There's something that we didn't necessarily. And I don't consider that really a spoiler, because it's very telegraphed in the trailer. But in the third act, when it went full camp and they're at Fun Island or whatever the hell it was called, that's where I was kind of enjoying things. But I don't know, the fact that we had other creatures coming up, I was going to ask, is that in the Trench book where you got like an octopus and you've got weird little like lizard things swimming up? And
no, I mean, there are other little prehistoric creatures they see down in the depths. The only thing that happens in the Trench is that we do learn that there's more prehistoric things besides just the Meg and like, the tube worms and stuff down there. We see a Chronosaurus, which is essentially a prehistoric crocodile. So those are down there as well, and they play a big part in the story. But those are nowhere to be found in the movie. It's just these little amphibious reptilian creatures, and yeah, like a giant prehistoric octopus of some kind.
Yeah, they look kind of like Komodo dragons with like longer, more jagged teeth.
Yeah, and like tails for swimming.
Yeah, so kind of boring in that regard, but the dialogue is camp and goofy and everything. I mean, pretty by the numbers in a lot of ways. And so I know Alton had a hand in at least a few versions of the script for the previous movie over the years, but yeah, he's not listed at all in this one. So it makes me, I guess, just no slight on him, say, hey, it's your creation, man. Sit back and collect the check, and I hope it's successful and finds an audience, even if I didn't necessarily like it very much. But
I knew the movie was in trouble, right, when the first scene happens, and it's this big, they build for like not three, maybe like a minute and a half to 2 minutes, this whole, sequence of the food chain. Right? Prehistoric food chain starts with a dragonfly eating a smaller creature, and then a lizard eats the dragonfly, then a bigger creature eats the lizard, and then, the T-Rex comes out trying to eat that creature, and follows them into the ocean, and then they quickly swim back to the shore, and the T-Rex is attacked by a Meg. This is in the trailer, of course. That's part of what the...
It's in the first book too, right?
Yeah, it's the opening scene of the first book. But the issue I had is as soon as the Meg jumps out and chomps down, it's pulling the creature like back in this big climactic moment, and the screen starts shrinking into the Meg logo. It's like it doesn't even let you see the money shot of the whole intro that they built up. I'm like, what the hell? So when that happened, I was like, uh-oh, there's going to be some choices here. And let me go to the editing next before we even get to the acting, because the editing was not good. It was choppy. I don't even notice editing that much all the time, but it was choppy. There were things that didn't make sense between cuts, and I did not like the editing in this film.
There were some weird choices, and I know they were deliberate ones too. Like notably, there's a bit where there's like a bloodthirsty jaw of a creature, and then it quick cut to the guy biting into a piece of chicken or something. So these things were very obviously intentional, maybe going for laughs, correspondence sort of thing, but it was just kind of jarring in a lot of ways. I didn't feel like Wheatley's direction was terrible, but I mean in the post aspect, I mean, yeah, that obviously didn't go over so well. And the effects, I guess, if we're in that sort of realm, I want to at least jump into that, man, because it's once again the 3D aspect. I could see the glimmer on the glass on the head suits when they were doing that initial walk, and you could definitely, it was evident during that opening scene because it's very CGI heavy with all those creatures and stuff in the prehistoric bit. But really, until a few aspects in the third act, when it's like the sole human stuff, which is what pretty much dominates the middle of, like, the middle 2/3 almost of the movie, it bookends with creature stuff. There was nothing to be seen, and so it felt, I mean, granted, I used an A-list, so it didn't really matter. I'm not spending anymore. But for somebody who did, man,
Yeah.
I feel for you. And also, a lot of the time when we see the sharks, especially in those occasional middle sections where they're down in the deep depths, I know it makes sense for things to be hidden in shadows, but I think the quality of the CG on those sharks was being hidden a little bit with the darkness, because when we did see them in more brightly lit bits in the third act, didn't look anywhere near as good. So I don't know, just personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't bother seeing it in 3D. Honestly, I always try and look into movies whether they're actually shot in 3D nowadays rather than post-converted. I actually have been doing that for quite a while now, because the post-conversion is just never worth it. The movie doesn't look right. It wasn't what it was shot for, so I just see it in really good Dolby theaters, so that way at least I get really good sound and everything. But
yeah, they can't all be Avatar, unfortunately. So.
yeah. But my opinion on the effects is I felt like the effects were of lower quality in this one than they were in the first one. I think it's because they had so many more effect shots that had so many more creatures to render out. Because it was 3 megs this time, and then a giant octopus and these little creatures. So the little creatures that went up on land to attack people like that, they didn't look terrible. So a lot of the effects and rendering went into those guys, because they would have looked even more awkward than the ones in the ocean that you can kind of obscure through the water. But man, there was a lot of times when those megs looked faked as hell, dude. Like, and the octopus tentacles, it just looked.
Those were probably the worst in my opinion.
Dude,
It
looked.
tentacles.
Honest to God, it did not look far from Sci-Fi Channel shit.
No,
like it really didn't.
Asylum or whatever.
No, I mean, yeah, the Sharknado people. You know what I mean? It's
They're going for a similar vibe with this, though. So I mean, I guess
maybe. But this is supposed to be above. Like this is supposed to be an upper echelon of effects. Like the effects in the Shallows were miles beyond this, and that came out almost 10 years ago now, which is really sad to think about. But yeah, it's crazy. Like I just don't understand the choices that were made effects wise, and why so much of the budget was wasted on this whole mercenary and corporate espionage subplot that is literally just thrown to the sharks. You know what I mean? Like and there was budget wasted on, rendering out all the bullets that didn't hit our main actors. Like all the mercenaries are fucking stormtroopers.
There's
you know
a
what
ton
I mean?
of gunplay in this movie too. I'm like, in a Meg movie,
and almost no one gets hit. It's just the worst. And like I just don't understand those choices. So effects wise, it was a bust. It was a big bust. I mean, let's get into the acting because we kind of skipped over it. Everyone's a cheeseball in this. The one dude, DJ, who, by the way, I don't know why they named him that, because DJ was the brother of the main lead in the first movie that ends up getting eaten by the Meg. But I guess they changed that because they had to, make sure it was a Chinese represented name instead of just DJ. Yeah. So now this character's DJ, and DJ had a couple of chuckle-worthy moments, but honest to God, I only chuckled once in the entire film. And so that was a big bust too. There was so much time of them running from mercenaries and hiding from mercenaries. I'm like, are we in a Meg movie or not? Like, it just was bad, man. It was bad. But anyway, back to the acting. Everyone was cheesy. The little girl was doing her best, but man, sometimes...
her and the uncle were the only ones who I really thought were not in on the joke that everybody else seemed to be on.
Yeah.
Like, as you mentioned, they thought they were in a different movie, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Statham knew what he was doing. I mean, I won't ruin it because it landed pretty funny, even though I didn't actually laugh out loud at it, but there is such an 80s action movie line, like one-liner after a death, that he spouts off that I'm just like,
Did it have chum in it?
Yep.
Yep, I thought the same damn thing.
But yeah, so I mean, the acting was what it was. Yeah, the two actors were trying harder than the others, but they felt out of place because of it. So
yeah, I always
yeah.
liked Cliff Curtis, and I felt like him and Statham both, like they just amplified the goofiness of both of their characters in this movie. And yeah, man, I mean, at least the person who I knew was landing with the laughs a little bit more was the dude who's like, yo, I even got the poison-tipped bullets from Jaws 2, and yet he makes a quip near the end of the film about, he's like, and they say, 50 caliber is,
my God.
not practical, and I'm like, you would not be able to, now let's check your brain into door, okay? But, my dad's a big outdoorsman and, weapons and whatnot, and you don't fire a 50 caliber with one hand diving just so dumb. But then again, cheesy action movie stuff, man. I'm not supposed to nitpick those sort of things. So he had some laughs for me. His he has his survival kit or whatever, and the woman who for whatever reason was ready to abandon her teammates constantly throughout the entire movie. That's apparently supposed to be a running joke with her character, but she was boring, and she finds his condoms, and he's like, different sort of emergencies. Like, bits like that, mild little chuckle, but nothing else where they were really going for laughs for me. Performance. So.
Yeah, I get you. I think... Did we miss anything? Oh, the cinematography, I guess.
Okay.
We talked about the editing, so cinematography-wise, it was shot okay at times. Some angles were congested, and again, the editing made it a bit jarring, but it looked okay. It was shot fine.
Yeah, I like the look of the walk through the trench. I mean, I thought that was okay. It was kind of giving me some... was it underwater?
Underwater, yeah.
Yeah, that was the vibe it was giving me in a lot of ways. So it wasn't bad in that regard. And if they had really amped up the creep factor with that sequence, because something happens to a couple characters without spoiling stuff, but yeah, they didn't really milk that scene for how cool and menacing and on your edge it could have been.
Right.
Although there was kind of an interesting payoff with a crack in a helmet that I thought was kind of cool. But yeah, aside from that, man, it wasn't poorly made. Ben Wheatley maybe needs to stick to his more art house sort of stuff, though, because I've liked just about everything else of his that I'd seen up until this. So
yeah. Well, I don't think there was very much of Ben Wheatley evident in this movie at all.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So yeah, guys, I think that pretty much covers our review of Meg 2: The Trench. Don't forget, we have an unboxing coming after this, but for those of you that have watched to this point, thank you very much for watching. And thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys.
Most stuff.
Until next week, when we come back, I think Robert and I will be seeing Last Voyage of the Demeter, so we'll be back reviewing that next week. But there's going to be a release this weekend that I think we're going to finally drop the music video. So,
sweet.
Yeah, everyone will finally be able to get a chance to see that. That should be good fun. But yes, thank you guys very much for watching. And until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias up in Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared. I'm here to do a special unboxing we got. Because, the studios sometimes send us stuff. This was not requested by us. This was not paid for by us. This is not paid promotion. This is just me opening this box and seeing what's inside. I'm not sure if I'm going to present this as its own episode or just at the tail end of our Meg review. So if that's where it is, hello, I hope you enjoyed the review. And let's take a look at what's inside of here. And open. Open. Okay. Seriously though, we're that protective of what's in here. This is the Russian doll of Meg 2 items. So I guess let's open this one up. Let's check what's in this box. Okay, first off is a $10 gift card for Wahoo's. I don't think we have a Wahoo. Wahoo's fish tacos cost $10? Because Jesus. I mean, okay, fair enough. $10 Wahoo. You can go get yourself a fish taco, apparently. All right, let's see what else we got. Jawsome Skin animated baby shark face mask. Infused with youth-promoting retinol and Ceramides. Oh boy. Animate your skin with the Cream Shop's animal masks. Our animal animated baby shark face mask promotes smooth, youthful looking skin like a baby shark. So, baby shark brand skin cream, I guess? Alright. So that's item number 2. Let's see what we got here. Oh, Lulu candles. It's a candle. Go frickin' figure, you guys. It's called Ocean Breeze. They literally just sent us an Ocean Breeze candle we could have picked up from frickin' Walmart. Oh, it's a soy candle. That's what makes it different. 100% cotton wick, because I care about that for sure. I want to make sure this wick is nothing but 100% cotton. Proudly made in the USA by Lulu Candles. This is absolutely no hate to Lulu Candles. It smells good. It smells pretty nice. I'll definitely be using this. I'll probably keep it right here. Ocean Breeze scent. Okay, looks good. The next thing I'm grabbing is big and large and in charge, and it's got all kinds of sea packing things on it, but this is cute. Is this just a shark towel? Oh, that's adorable. It's a towel, but you put it on your head, and you even have a fin in the back. That's adorable, actually. Why is this going to become my for sure towel from now on? Is this illegal? Because I'm doing it. No one wants a big old tag on their towel. What the hell? But look at that. That's so cute. So, yeah. Cool little towel. Well, now I can't see anything. So, what's the point of this? Yeah, that's not. Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. That's the coolest thing so far. A shark towel. I'm about a shark towel. Oh, there's a couple more things down here. All right. Let's see what else we got. Is this an ice cube tray? You fill these with water and then you get little shark ice cubes? You just fill those with water and then you've got little shark fin ice cubes. I don't know why they took bites out of it other than to be cute. And make it so you couldn't fit a 6th one on there. But, alright. What else we got? It looks like we got a couple of other things here. This right here, which just looks like a straight-up shark bath bomb. Bathe in Paradise. It's a shark attack bath bomb. So, yeah, you just drop this into your hot running water and it bombs your bath, shark style. So that's kind of cute. That's kind of cute. And then it looks like this is the last item. So it's a can opener and a wine bottle opener, but it's shaped like a shark. The shark fin is a little something. I don't know, maybe a paring knife you might call that. I don't know what you call that little knife with the serrated edges. This is a bottle opener. And then you've got your corkscrew for the wine bottle. That's cute and functional. So there you go. It's a Swiss Army shark. There you go. So I think that's it. I think that's all the items. There you go, guys. That was what was in the Meg 2 mystery box. So think of that what you will, but thank you very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird, and remember, stay scared.